All right, I want to begin today with this isn't the title of the lesson, but what I'd like to call the parable of traffic escape. Traffic escape. Now, I'm not one that has a lot of phone games on my phone. I just haven't done that, haven't taken the time to do that. But I found one recently that I really like. It's called Traffic Escape. And you're stuck in a traffic jam, and basically there are arrows on each car, and you have to move the cars out of the way in a certain order, or you'll crash into the next car by the way that they all move. Nothing violent, nothing bad about this game, just a great game. And I love it because it's a logic game. It's not about skill. You can always win if you do the things in the right order. And for me and my personality, that's just wonderful. I don't want to have to, well, did I do this fast enough? Did I do this right? No, if you think through it clearly, you'll win every time. And those just are wonderful games, in my opinion. So I started playing the game, and any of you that know anything about phone games, there's all kinds of ads between the games. Yeah, messes up everything. It takes you forever to play multiple hands of this thing because of all the stupid ads in between. Some of the ads I don't really care to watch. Some of the ads I don't really care to participate in. So I'm like, okay, I really like this game, and when I get into something like that, I get obsessed with the game. I mean, I'm about this. I'm going to win this thing. And I moved right to the top of the leaderboards because I was playing it so often. And I was having a good time playing this game. Well, then I decided, okay, I'm going to buy the upgrade. And the upgrade gets rid of all the ads. It's $5 for the upgrade or something. And now I can play it 3 times as much because I don't have to listen to all the ads in between. This is just awesome. Yay me. So I'm going at this game. I mean, I'm going after it. And what I didn't realize is that I'm feeding my natural carnal mind this whole time. Now, is the content of this game wrong? Is there anything bad about this game? No, not at all. But it's how much time, it's how much attention, it's how much focus I'm giving to this game, all in the natural carnal mindset, all in this natural frame of reference. Is my spirit growing while I'm playing this game? Am I getting more expectant about the next time I get the opportunity to pray for somebody while I'm playing this game? So is there anything wrong with the game? Not directly, but is there anything wrong with the game? Yes, there's a problem. So I started praying about this, and well, I missed a detail of the story that's kind of important. In the process of doing this, I had an opportunity to pray for somebody on Tuesday, I think, at a restaurant, and I did not do it. I saw it, and I didn't know anything about the situation, and I'm like, well, he's with his friends. I don't really want to interrupt, and I bowed out. Had another opportunity Wednesday night to pray for at least one other person and maybe 2 other people, and didn't do that either. So I'm leaving, and I'm like, that's real good. Here I am leading the class, and I'm supposed to be doing this and hadn't because I'm so flipping obsessed with playing Traffic Escape that I haven't done anything spiritually to keep my mind in the right place. Now, some of you are nodding your head. I don't know if you're just enjoying my misery or if you can relate to what I'm talking about.
I felt guilty last week too, same thing. I saw somebody with the home oxygen walking here, and we were just like, we gotta go.
Right.
Pick up our kids to go to church, you know.
So I got to thinking about this. Okay, what's different? Like this afternoon, when we schedule an activity in advance to go out and pray for people, you have an opportunity to get your head right before you go out there, right? The challenge is you're not always going to have the opportunity to get your head right. True, right. So what do I do under normal events? What do I do on a day-by-day, week-by-week basis to make sure that I am ready in season and out of season, that I'm always ready? So I took this back to the Lord, and I said, okay, Lord, obviously this is a problem. What do I need to learn from this? And his answer really surprised me. He said, I don't really care if you play the game. I do care that you do it all the time and you trade that time for other things that you should be doing. In fact, the upgrade, he said, I'm excited about the upgrade. I want to teach you about leverage. And the upgrade was leverage. So for what I'm called to do, for what I'm called to be into, I need to understand leverage. $5 was a great leverage thing towards the end of spending less time on distractions and ads and more time actually doing the thing, which in this case was playing the game. So there's a lesson for me to be learned about this process, this concept of leverage. How do you leverage your time better? What can you buy? What can you do? What can you have that shouldn't cost a lot of money to better position you to do what you need to be doing, do what only you can be doing?
They call that don't spend all our time doing a penny job.
Yes, that's good. So this idea of leverage, and the Lord was very much excited about me seeing this idea of leverage. He was not very excited about me obsessing about this game. Now, he still says you can play it, but don't do it all the time. Limit yourself. Limit the exercise of your carnal, natural mind, because that's exactly what this is. You're very comfortable there. You've spent most of your life there. You enjoy it. You thrive in that environment because it's what you've always known, but that is not helping to develop that spiritual mind. So the process of me playing this video game, I still got it on my phone and I will still continue to play it, but I've got to be careful about how much time I'm giving it, how much time I'm doing it. Well, I started thinking then, how do I get ready to do this on an ongoing basis? And the Lord just gave me kind of a message or an outline of things. It's somewhat loosely related to what he talks about in the book, but I don't really care about following the book. You'll get a double dose of 2 different ideas if you want to look at it that way. All right, let's see if I got everything there. Okay, I need to conduct myself as though I don't know what is coming so that I'm always ready to do what comes across my path. That's the position I've got to take on this. I got to convince myself that I'm not always going to have time to get myself ready. But I've got to be ready. I've got to walk ready. And then if the opportunities come about and I'm ready, great. It shouldn't be a problem to seize them. But if I'm not ready and the opportunities come up, it's very easy to just dismiss that away. It's very easy to just not be obedient because you can logically, in this carnal mind that you've been playing with, you can just find an excuse, find a reason to not go there. Does everybody understand what I'm getting at here? I'm seeing heads nod. Okay, good. Today, I'm going to call this doing the Father's business. Doing the Father's business. Let's start in John, chapter 5, verses 19 and 20. John 5, 19 through 20. Therefore, Jesus answered and was saying to them, truly, truly, I say to you, the Son can do nothing of himself unless it is something he sees the Father doing. For whatever the Father does, those things the Son also does in the same way. For the Father loves the Son and shows him all things that he himself is doing, and the Father will show him greater works than these, so that you will be amazed. Now, when you read this, what image comes to mind? When you see this, what kind of thoughts go through your head? The Son can do nothing of himself unless it is something he sees the Father doing. Think about that. What does that mean to you? As Jesus goes about his normal everyday life on the earth, how does he know what to do and what not to do? Connected by the Holy Spirit. Okay, but this literally says he sees the Father do it. Now, what does that mean? Now, when I first started looking at this, and historically I've looked at this, okay, in that moment he had a vision or something about a word of knowledge about what was about to happen. And he walked right into it. Okay, if you approach it from that perspective, and you don't have those word of knowledge, visions, whatever, what's your default mode of operation? Well, I didn't see anything, so I don't have to do this. Right? If that's how I interpreted it, that Jesus only did what he saw the Father doing, and I don't see the Father doing anything about this situation right here, then am I obligated to do something? Am I obligated to pray? Am I obligated to inject myself into that situation? Jesus didn't do it according to his own words. Or have I misunderstood what he's saying? Let's explore that idea a little bit. The word for see there is the word blepo. Yeah. Blepo. It's at the top if you missed it. Strong's number G991 if you want to look it up. In addition to seeing with the eyes, as you would expect that word means, in addition to seeing with your natural eyes, it means some other things. Let's look at some of those a little more unusual definitions of this word for sees. Now remember, Jesus didn't do anything unless he first sees the Father doing it. So that's where we're going with this. First thing it means, to perceive by the senses, to feel. Now, is that seeing with your eyes? Kind of, not directly. Do you see it gets a little bigger than just seeing with your eyes? The next definition that I thought was interesting, to discover by use, to know by experience. To discover by use, to know by experience. So, go ahead. No, you're fine. Go ahead. Or has already experienced it. Not necessarily in this moment. But this says that word means he could know by experience what the Father is doing and do it in this case. Okay, you're all tracking with me here. The next one, to have the power of understanding. Again, is that physical eyes? Did he actually see something with his physical eyes? He could have, but he's not limited to that. Here's another good one. To discern mentally, observe, perceive, discover, understand. To discern mentally. Is that seeing with your eyes? Observe, okay. I can kind of see observing being with your eyes. Perceive. That goes beyond the eyes. Discover. And there's a bunch of different ways you can discover. Understand. And the last unusual definition for this word for see, to turn the thoughts or direct the mind to a thing. To consider, contemplate, to look at, to weigh carefully, to examine. Okay, with all that said, does our concept of Jesus did only what he saw the Father doing, does it expand just a little bit? It's no longer just witnessing in the moment. It could have been witnessing from the past. It could have been witnessing at another time. Let's talk through this idea of what did Jesus actually see before he did things. Other versions of John 15, 19 through 20 that'll kind of start to emphasize this idea. The truth is that the Son does nothing on his own. All these actions are led by the Father. Listen to this. The Son watches the Father closely and then mimics the work of the Father. Now, what's that saying? Does he copycat the exact transaction? Well, yes. But could you mimic the work of somebody and they not even be there? Could you have watched somebody as an apprentice in a trade 20 years ago? And today you're still mimicking what you saw them do? So does it remove from that the idea of, I'm going to see this in the present tense. I have to see it right now. Otherwise, I'm not doing it. Here's another one. The Phillips. Jesus said to them, I assure you that the Son can do nothing of his own accord, only what he sees the Father doing. What the Son does is always modeled on what the Father does. What the Son does is always modeled on what the Father does. Now, is modeled a copycat? Did he copy what the Father did? Did he see the Father directly do it each and every time and then do that? He's modeling the intent. He's modeling the character. He's modeling the nature of what the Father has done. It looks like most of you are with me here. All right, let's read some examples of how Jesus ministered to people. And then let's talk through the realities of this concept within what he did. Matthew 4:23-24. Therefore, Jesus answered and was saying to them, truly, truly, I tell you, the Son can do nothing of himself unless it's something he sees the Father doing. For whatever the Father does, these things the Son does also in the same way. If the Father loves the Son, show him. Oh, it's another version of the same thing. Sorry. That's Matthew's take on it. Okay. I don't know why that's in here. I'm sorry. I'm going to skip that. Matthew 8:16. When evening came, they brought to him many people who were possessed by demons. He cast out the spirits with a word of command and healed everyone who was sick. Now, how many was there? Well, everyone got healed. Everyone got delivered. How many people were there? Many. What does many mean? It means more than two. We're not really sure how many means. But my question is going to begin. Okay, these many people that Jesus dealt with, did Jesus have a vision for each one of them? And I'm going to say he did not. So how was he able to do what he could only do what he saw the Father doing if he didn't have a vision for each one of these people that he's praying for? He knew the Father well enough that once he got the vision once, that same concept repeated to the next person, to the next person, to the next person. Okay, here's another one. Matthew 9:35. Jesus went around to all the cities and towns. He taught people in their meeting houses and told them the good news of the kingdom of heaven. He healed all the sick and weak people. Again, how many people are we talking about here? It doesn't say, but it's more than two. So am I to believe that Jesus had multiple visions on this afternoon of him healing each person, doing something for each person? It's possible. I don't really think that that's the way that it played out. I don't think that that's what the verse was actually saying to us, even though that's how I've interpreted it. Why have I interpreted it that way? It was a get out jail free card. If I didn't see God do it, I don't have to do it. Matthew 12:14-16. But the Pharisees went out and conspired against him how to destroy him. Jesus, aware of this, withdrew from there. And many followed him, and he healed them all and ordered them not to make him known. Again, how many people are we talking about? It doesn't really say. Do we believe that he had a vision or some experience or something for each person that he healed? Or is he lumping all this together under the general character of the Father? Think about this.
Well, every time he did that, all the different ones that were reading it happened.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
That's how he's seen.
Yes. I'm telling you how I have interpreted this, and it gave me an excuse that probably didn't really exist in the scripture. We're going to get to a place where God's not going to tell us everything. We're just going to start seeing stuff. The question is going to be, what happens next? Are you going to insist that God tell you every little step? Or are you just going to start doing? Okay, here's some more. Mark 6:55-56. They rushed to the entire countryside and began to heal the sick and began to bring the sick to him on pallets wherever they heard he was. Everywhere he went, whether to village or town or countryside, they laid the sick in the marketplaces and begged him to let them touch even the edge of his cloak, and all who touched it were completely healed. Now, look at this one carefully. Who is doing the action here? The people begged Jesus to let them touch his robe. Well, what if that wasn't the vision that Jesus had? And yet it still happened, and yet they still all got healed. Whether or not Jesus had that particular vision of this is how this is going to work for all you guys.
Well, it's a matter of, he knew what the Father would do.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Oh, Jesus would do this.
Yes.
So it's just, it's not a matter of each individual person. He knows that the Father would
yes.
let them all touch his cloak.
Yes. You're starting to get what I'm saying here about we can't use an excuse. Well, God didn't show me. Really? Are you saying that Jesus saw this vision, especially this case? All these people are begging him to touch the. What if I didn't see that? What if I wanted to do something different? Sorry, you missed it. You don't get to play today. Go ahead, Carl.
A piece of the song just popped in my head. It is no secret what God can do, what he's done for others, to do for you. So once we begin to see this happen, we don't have to go, oh God, should I pray for those people? Or should I, share that with them? We'll just learn to know that that's what the Father did, that's what Jesus did. That's what he wants us to do.
Kind of like the what would Jesus do?
Right.
They
Right.
Really,
So yeah, it's starting to kind of click now that what's the Father's will for you to be healed?
What's his heart in the matter? Right.
Yeah.
What?
Then,
And his heart in a general sense, not necessarily in this specific
right.
case.
Overall, he wants you healed. Well, okay,
And Carla brought up an interesting point. What he's done for others, he'll do for you. Jesus is the same yesterday, today, and forever. God cannot change. He does not change. So if he's ever done it for anyone, and you ask him the same question, he's got to respond, yes, I'll do that for you too. Or he changed. Or he's being a respecter of persons. And he's not that either. So if anybody has ever received this thing, if anybody has ever gotten God to do that, and you ask him the same question, what is he obligated to say? Yes, of course. Because I'm the same, I don't change, and I don't show favoritism.
It can also cross over with other things, not just healing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like if somebody needs you a ride.
Absolutely.
Like that, and you just have to be free, and they can ask you. It bothers me when people are like, oh, well, I just need to worry about that. Or say you have the extra $100 that you would have allocated to a bill, and you just know you're going to spend it on clothing or going out to eat. But you know somebody that specifically needs something. Why do people they use that excuse of, well, I'm going to pray about it and see if I should be blessing this person with that.
And what is the root of that? Exactly. The root of that is God didn't tell me to do it, so I'm exempt. And we're basing it off of what we perceived Jesus did. Well, I can't do anything unless the Father shows me. I agree.
You have to be cautious
I agree
about that, right? Because
and we're going to get into some other examples where he goes the other way about that. But you're right. My default, though, has got to change. My default has got to be yes, unless the Lord says otherwise, instead of I'm not doing it until I'm specifically told to do it.
It just kind of occurred to me, kind of in that same thought. It's almost like two different angles. Like one we just read a passage in John about how Jesus is mimicking the Father, and we as Christ followers, if we have Jesus, right, we get to claim Jesus, and we mimic what He has done for us. We mimic basically we should be mimicking what the Father does for us,
right?
Not just Jesus, right? Because now we have Jesus,
right.
So it's like mimicking that, while simultaneously from the other direction, expecting that God does this because He has already done it. So it's like this weird dichotomy, like two different angles you're looking at, like from top coming down and then from us emulating that as well. So how do we live and walk in that? That is where I'm a little bit challenged on the, there's this matter of confirmation. But if we live and walk through Jesus, and then we should always know that it is the nature of the Father to do that, to like heal.
Yeah. And for me, I haven't answered this whole question yet. I'm still praying through this. I'm still processing through this. What I'm trying to do here today is just get you to see it from a different angle, to get you to look at this whole picture from a different perspective. I'm not saying I've got this all figured out yet, but what I am saying is, for me, at the very least, the first thing that I've learned about this is my default has got to change. My default has got to become yes until God says no, rather than I'm not touching that unless I'm told to specifically.
To me, I think back to the whole idea of like, how can we mimic the Father? How can we manipulate what the Father is doing? But also knowing what his, you know, knowing that he is good in his nature is like, I think obedience is a part of it, and not so much obedience, but discipline. Like, we can't emulate those steps if we don't actually become disciplined ourselves. Like,
right.
For example, if you have somebody in, like you said, in the restaurant that you need to pray for, if it was a discipline and if it was something that we did out of obedience constantly, then we're like the black belt that's, automatically it's just like second nature. Oh, here we go, we're gonna pray for this person, right? And you don't even think about it. Like, and that's that part of like growing and being in the discipline, but we can't do that unless we're actually like in the word, praying, living, asking for the wisdom constantly, walking prayers, right? Those kind of things.
Right.
That's how we can become more involved.
Yes. And that's why I started with the parable of the video game, because if I'm spending all my time playing that video game, my spiritual nature is not being renewed, it's not being developed, it's not being honed. So that when I'm in that situation, for me to know the difference, for me to know which side of this road I'm going to be on. So much about Christianity, and it's sad, but it's true. So much about Christianity is we go from ditch to ditch. There's a bar ditch on one side of the road, there's a bar ditch on the other side of the road. And we spend some time in this ditch and we realize, oh man, that's not where I want to be. And we shift all the way over to the other ditch on the other side to compensate for where we were. The truth is somewhere in the middle. The right perspective is somewhere in the middle, and we like the ditches. We swing it completely over to the ditch on the opposite side of the road. Well, I'm going to avoid that completely. Well, you're missing still the truth that's in the middle somewhere.
That came to Jesus.
Yes.
And I think that maybe is your topic. That may be an important point. Because something I told my stepdaughter before about her and about others in her life is God will let you go as far down.
Right.
To find that he is the rock until you're tired of going down and you're ready to reach out and grab his hand. There may be some people who have not reached their bottom.
Right.
That we need to let reach the bottom.
Right.
So there is a case for praying, and that may
right.
be the rare case. I'm not saying. But that just seemed like an important point to make. But it was those who came to Jesus.
That's a significant thing. It's in my notes later in the thing. I love it when people get ahead of me. It's awesome. Every person that came to Jesus walked away healed. Every person that presented themselves to him walked away delivered, freed from whatever it was they brought him. But not every person that Jesus saw that needed healing got healed. It's an important distinction. Are they coming to you, or are you injecting yourself in the situation?
Where God has told me.
Yeah.
He didn't show me who it was to pray
right.
for. Maybe 2 or 3 days ahead. But I have seen the prayer and heard,
yes.
There. And then later on, when I walk into the situation, it's like, oh,
that's it. Yeah.
This is where it is. And I knew that before John Phipps ever asked us, I knew we would be helping with the baptisms, but I still follow my, how do I say this and not offend everyone? He is my covering.
Right.
He does make the final decision for
right.
what happens in our household. 99% of the time I like it once in a while. I do like Jesus.
Were you going to say something earlier, Julie? Okay.
So, it just figuring out how my mind works. I don't know if anybody else is like this, but when you said from ditch to ditch, a lot of times, well, I've learned to be better over the years, but I'm a people pleaser and I want to be all things to all people. But that brings me joy, not because I want to, but I want to help. I want to fix. I want to, if they come to me, I'm willing to do it. But then to the point of, in the past, that it hurt me, like physically I'm worn out, or mentally
right.
I'm exhausted, or
right.
And God showed me not all good things are God. I didn't ask you to do this. You just do it because it's a need that's there. And I'm like, well, I'm not going to do it. I'm just going to do it. You know, and I take on a lot of responsibility because I want to help people. But then I was wearing myself out.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was no good too. You know.
Really exciting.
So it's like I had to learn boundaries.
Right.
And I did need to know confirmation. And sometimes, like, of course, prayer, I mean, it doesn't take a lot, but just doing things and chores and being and giving, and you can only do so much before you got to get refilled back up because you're giving. But it can also, just because it's good doesn't mean it's God's called you to do that.
Right. You may have taken somebody else's job.
Yeah.
You may have not allowed them to do what God,
Or maybe it wasn't a need that God needed for them right then.
So I've been working on like boundaries, and I do need confirmation sometimes. I usually am quick to say, well, I used to, I'm doing better, but yes, every day, you know, and then you're just like, whoa, too much. But, no. So
he's my biggest supporter and my biggest fan. That's something that's what got me in saying no. And sometimes it's but
I'm trying to just follow my peace.
yeah, but later I figure out he had the right answer because God did put him in a position of protection of him.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying
And you can,
yeah,
I agree.
I'm just saying to realize there we have that the men do have a feeling for where, you know, because he said no to a networking event. It was kind of like, what? And then we figured out where it was. And we're like, oh, yeah. Thank you for that now.
Yeah.
We've each got to realize, we've each got to recognize that whatever your strength is in your personality, it is also a weakness until it's brought under control.
And yeah. So
until you learn okay, this is a strength. So it's really easy for me to just default to my strength every time. There's trouble waiting there unless that strength is also tempered, unless it's balanced in some way. I'm not saying avoid your strength. I'm not saying run from your strength. God gave you that strength for a reason, but it's also got to be sanctified, for lack of a better term, before even your strength is always effective and not detrimental to you or to anybody else around you. Well, I'm going to go with my strength, and you should. I'm not saying that at all, but you've got to recognize, unless I have taken my strength and submitted it to Jesus and let him show me the areas of that strength that are within themselves a weakness, the areas of that strength that are within themselves a problem or a concern or a possibility that you're going to get messed up somehow. Unless you've got somebody speaking into those strengths and kind of directing them, they can do damage. But it's so easy for us to just go right with our strength, and we find ourselves in all sorts of messes. Now, how in the world did I end up here? I was just going with my strength. Well, that's the problem. That strength still needs to be sanctified. That strength still needs to be brought under the blood, and you need to take every thought captive, even within the realm of your strength. Let's keep going here. Luke 4:40, the sun went down. The people brought their sick friends to Jesus. They had many kinds of sicknesses. Jesus laid his hands on each sick person and healed them all. And again, I ask the question, did he have a vision or whatever each time he prayed for somebody? I'm going to say that he did not. Not that he couldn't have, but I'm going to say that he did not have that particular experience for every person that he prayed for. Go ahead.
I just had a thought, they all came to Jesus, to be healed. So he was seeing where the Father was working. That's the sight right there.
But I think he saw it once. I think he saw it once as, okay, we're going to have a healing service right here. I don't know how many people are going to come to the healing service. I don't know what they're going to be faced with. But I don't need to know every particular instance to know that I'm supposed to do this.
Because he knows what he knew without any shadow of doubt that he was a manifestation of the Father. And that he's like, because I am the manifestation of the Father, God will heal.
Yes. Yes.
Didn't Jesus say, I know the Father and the Father knows me?
Right. I'm in the Father and the Father is in me. Yeah.
Anything else?
Okay, that was a bunch of people that Jesus healed. Here's one more, and then we'll move on to another idea of this. Luke 6:17-19. Jesus and the apostles came down from the mountain. Jesus stood on a flat place. A large crowd of his followers was there. Also, there were many people from all around Judea, Jerusalem, and the seacoast cities of Tyre and Sidon. They all came to hear Jesus teach and to be healed of their sicknesses. He healed the people who were troubled by evil spirits. Everyone was trying to touch him because power was coming out from him. Jesus healed them all. Again, I ask, was that an individual case-by-case vision thing? And I don't think that it was. So we shouldn't expect it to be a case-by-case individual vision thing when we're praying for people. Will that happen sometimes? Yes, hopefully. Do we need to depend upon that happening? That's probably where some maturity and some experience comes in there. God will probably be more likely to show you those things as you're learning than he will after you get experienced with this.
Well,
go ahead.
That's the difference between expecting too, right?
Right. Right. I'm going to go do this and see what happens. Yeah. So if you do the study on this, these crowds, these various crowds that we've talked about, went from several people, possibly to several hundred, and in some cases, it was probably even several thousand. And it just doesn't seem practical for him to have 1,000 visions. How long would that healing line take? I mean, they would be there for days to get through that many people if we had the requirement of I've got to see each individual case before I do anything. Moving right along. Matthew 21:12-15. Jesus went into the temple. He threw out all the people who were buying and selling there. He turned over the tables that belonged to the men who were exchanging different kinds of money. And he upset the benches of those who were selling doves. Jesus said to all the people there, it is written in the scriptures, my temple will be a house where people will pray, but you are changing God's house into a hideout for robbers. Let's stop right there. What did Jesus just do? He cleaned house, and not in a peaceful, let's get rid of the dirt sort of thing. To put it politely, I think Jesus was ticked. Be ye angry and sin not, and I think he was flirting with the line on this particular verse. He was not happy. Imagine going out to our thing in the coffee shop and you just running amok through the coffee shop and throwing things all over the place, or if someone had a guest speaker and we have a book table out front and you're thinking, now I'm not saying these things are bad. I'm not comparing, I'm not using that context. But what I am saying is what Jesus just did. He went to the book table and he threw everything and made a mess. That's where he's at. That's his frame of mind. Now look at verse 15 or 14. The blind and crippled people came to Jesus in the temple and Jesus healed them. Wait a minute. This is not a healing meeting. Can't you see that I'm a little upset right here and we're not praying for the sick right now? You'll have to come back tomorrow. They were selling merch. Yeah, Jesus hit them with a table. Had you ever noticed this connection, though? Jesus walks in authority and he goes in there and he cleans house. And then the next verse, people came to him for healing. And he's able to make a mental shift. Or did he have to make a mental shift? Was that zeal, was that, we call it anger, but was that expression within his spiritual mind? They were cheating. It was a dishonest deal, absolutely. And it was against God's purpose. It was in his house. He had every right to clean the place out. But in my mind, I cannot see how you transition from cleaning everything out. We're going to have a healing meeting.
That guy that, Tom Loud gave examples several times where, oh, I'm just not in the mood, I'm tired.
Right.
Do that. I'll go even though I'm in a bad mood.
Right.
And it still worked.
And it still worked. Yes.
It's just a great, once you learn and ingrained in who you are, your identity, then you don't have to be like, oh, I gotta get right. You know, you just do it and your authority takes care of that.
And your identity and you understand it all? Absolutely.
I think you don't have to like meditate. Even if, because I mean, he proves that for him, that worked. And you don't have to be in the right one.
Okay, Jesus, imagine you're Jesus. You walk into the temple and you see all this nonsense going on. Okay, I've got to do something about this. So right, you start flinging stuff and cleaning house. When, during that course of events, did he have the vision, oh, I need to heal some people while I'm here?
That's what he's gonna do.
Well, he saw a need and
He saw a need and he went for it.
Yeah.
I don't think he had any predisposition about the fact that there were going to be people healed that day in this context. I think his primary purpose was to clean the house. And then, oh, people are asking for healing. Oh, okay, we can do that too.
Well, what about the other side? What if he was going about his day expecting people to be healed, but then heard about this event.
Okay.
Someone first, like, what the heck is that?
Right.
And then he goes there, like, what are you guys doing?
Right.
You not realize?
Okay.
He just wakes up everybody knowing that that's his goal and to share the kingdom and heal people.
Either way, he saw one and not the other. Either way, he got instruction about one and not necessarily the other. So whichever one he saw, if he saw either one of them, whichever one he saw, both of them were within the heart and the character of the Father.
It's like, because he was going out of obedience. And because obedience, you know how it is, like we talk about obedience with our kids, like you talk about being obedient, it's not always fun.
Right.
It's about being, doing it consistently because you know it's right. Being obedient, he went. And then he expected God to move. And I think that's just the crux of the matter. We went there and we did this cleaning house, and we came to heal this. God still is faithful, and they still work.
Yes. And it's also possible you saw neither. He's going to the temple to pray, to do whatever, just because that's what he does. And en route, oh, this isn't right. I need to fix this. And, oh, people want to be healed too. I need to deal with this as well.
You've seen the Father go out on the Old Testament.
He has. Yes, he has. Yes. So if he's seen God do it once, remember, God can't change. If God did it once, then is that still applicable for today? Is he still willing, capable, desirous? Has anything changed about what he saw before versus where he's at now?
I sat there and cried. And before I had tried to push to release my sin, was this concept that Big Tree Church would be a church that other churches would come to for prayer. And that has stuck with me this whole, I think, 2 years I've been here.
Wow.
That this church has become a place that other churches come to for prayer. And I know I talked to you about our Baptist family, and we still see them as our Baptist family, which we're in this family now. Because right now there's we go back and we talk about Holy Spirit.
Right. Yeah. Walls come up. Yeah.
Yeah. But this church getting a reputation of being worth for prayer for healing seems to me to fall into that line of what Pastor John saw or wanted.
And I firmly believe this is part of that.
Yeah.
So already, have we seen enough that your idea of Jesus does nothing unless he sees the Father do it? Has that already, I don't want to say been destroyed, but has that already been changed? Has that already been expanded? Or I've got to look at this differently than what I had before, because I can't use this as an excuse. Whether I saw it or not, it's not an excuse. Let's keep going. John 2, 1 through 11. Now on the first day, Jesus' mother went to a wedding feast in Cana, in the Galilean village of Cana. Jesus and his disciples were all invited to the banquet. With so many guests, they ran out of wine. When Mary realized it, she came to Jesus and asked, "They have no wine. Can't you do something about it?" Verse 4. Jesus replied, "My dear one, don't you understand that if I do this, it will change nothing for you, but it will change everything for me? My hour of unveiling my power has not yet come." Now, Jesus went to that wedding. Did he have any clue that something was about to transpire that would introduce and start his ministry? He had not a clue. Not a clue. But Jesus can do nothing unless he see the Father do it. So had he seen the Father do this? I don't think he had yet.
Well, I think this comes back to the point where, like, he was showing compassion in this situation, but like doing it out of love for somebody, but then expecting that God's going to work anyway, like whether it's now or later, his ministry is about to happen, and he's expecting God's going to do everything that he said he was going to do.
Absolutely.
So that's why he's probably saying, like, for me, my time on earth, for you, it's going to change everything for me. I know it's going to happen. It's just a matter of when it will happen on earth. And so he's probably trying to like navigate that the human aspect of this.
Yeah, and it would be a tough thing to navigate. It would be a tough thing to consider. But he didn't really expect it to start on this particular occasion. But it did. Somebody made a demand, and he had to respond because of the faith in the demand. He honored his mother, but it was the faith in her instruction that put a demand on Jesus that he could not escape from. But when did he see God do this? I'm not going to read the rest of the passage. You can read the rest of the passage for yourself.
But he'd seen God create.
Yeah.
He had seen God create. I think back to the Old Testament. There was a miracle with the oil that kept flowing from the borrowed vessels. And the instruction was to take the oil, sell it, pay the debt. You can read about that in 2 Kings chapter 4 if you want to read it. How about the flour that kept coming out of the barrel after the lady first made a meal for the prophet? You can read about that, 1 Kings chapter 17. So had God done things like this before? So when he's in this situation, even though he didn't have an instruction about this particular situation, he didn't have an inkling, he didn't have a leading, he didn't have guidance, he didn't have a vision, he didn't have whatever. He didn't even know it was going to happen. He still was able to draw on what he had seen the Father do in the past and make this happen.
This is actually really, so first of all, thank you for like drawing this idea out, because this is transformational in the sense that it puts Jesus as a human far closer to us than we realize.
Yes.
Because he had the same thing. We talk about that, and then we assume like, well, he's fully God and fully man at the same time. But then we just assume that if he's fully God, he sees everything. He did, but he's also like experiencing the human life, and like he's just showing us how to be even more obedient.
Right.
And how to know and
Yeah.
expect that God. Just a really cool.
just an added thought, and I don't have time to develop this, but it's just thought, what really transpired when Jesus turned that water into wine? The real essence of the miracle was he collapsed time. And what I mean when I say that was, if you talk to somebody that's in wine or vineyards or that sort of stuff, you plant a seed in the ground, it takes like 7 years before that seed produces its first crop. I don't even know if that's the right term, of wine. 7 years for it go from seed form to an actual wine harvest, wine collection. But that wine is no good. It takes another 7 years for the wine to get good. So 14 years. Planting a seed till you get good wine. So what did Jesus do in this moment? He collapsed 14 years into a second. That's a suddenly. That's an incredible concept, and I'm just going to drop that right there, and you can think about that however you want to. But what he actually did is compress 14 years down into a moment.
He turned the water into wine.
I saw a picture on Facebook or something one time. It was a grocery store that was like moving their shelves around, and they had the wine and the water label on the end of the aisles, and they were in the process of moving the aisles around. So the picture showed water, and the label on the end of it was wine. And Jesus did it again. It was funny. But again, my whole point with this, did Jesus see the Father do that particular time? I say he did not. But he'd seen him do things like it in the past. God's the same yesterday, today, and forever. He can't change. So if he ever saw it in the past, he's still willing, able, capable to do it today when a demand of faith is placed upon me, whether or not I believe it's my time to do it. Are y'all getting this? Are you seeing this? Luke 8:42, part B through 48. As Jesus went with him, he was surrounded by the crowds. A woman in the crowd had suffered for 12 years with constant bleeding, and she could find no cure. Coming up behind Jesus, she touched the fringe of his robe. Immediately, the bleeding stopped. Verse 45, who touched me? Jesus asked. Everyone denied it, and Peter said, Master, this whole crowd is pressing up against you. But Jesus said, someone deliberately touched me, for I felt healing power go out from me. When the woman realized that she could not stay hidden, she began to tremble and fell to her knees in front of him. The whole crowd heard her explain why she had touched him and that she had been immediately healed. Daughter, he said to her, your faith has made you well. Go in peace. Did Jesus know anything about this situation? When was the first time he had any inkling that something was either going to happen or had happened? When he felt the power go through him from a deliberate touch of faith. But yet Jesus can't do anything unless he sees the Father do it. There's no seeing the Father do anything here. How do we explain this? There was a demand, a deliberate touch of faith. And he really can't offer an opinion about a deliberate touch of faith.
Wouldn't that be?
Go ahead.
Wouldn't that be the Father doing it through Jesus?
Absolutely.
He had no.
Yes.
The Father saw the need.
Or the Holy Spirit, the anointing resting upon him. The actual agent of how it happened, I'm not really worried about. But Jesus didn't even get to offer an opinion about whether this occurred or not. He was not even he was in the room, of course, but mentally he was not even thinking about, oh, somebody's going to be healed as I'm walking from here to here. What was he in the process of doing in this story? For those of you that are Bible scholars and remember, he was going with Jairus to pray for his daughter. And he gets interrupted. So his head is, okay, we got to get to Jairus' daughter. We're in the process of healing somebody else. Oh, whoa, what happened? Somebody just got healed. Who was it? And we think, well, Jesus, you should know who it was. He didn't know. He's not omniscient. He gave all the God powers up when he came to earth. He's not omniscient. He didn't know. And that was his first clue in, hey, something's going on here. We probably ought to stop and talk about this for a moment. What happened? And the lady finally fesses up. It was me. I touched you deliberately, and here's why. Daughter, don't be afraid. I'm not going to take it away from you. You're not in trouble. Go in peace. Your faith has made you whole. Faith has made you whole. And this is the one where some of them, it says she spent all her money on physicians and didn't grow any better, but got worse. So she went away whole. What does that mean? The bleeding stopped, but everything got restored. She was about to receive some financial compensation for all this stuff that she had been through. I don't know how that transpires, but the next step in her life is she's got some financial stuff heading her direction because she went away whole, not just healed. Nothing missing, nothing broken. Peace. And Jesus didn't know anything about it. So when we finally approach God with real faith and make a demand on him with real faith, does he even have the option of telling us no? Jesus didn't have an option here. It was already done before he knew anything about it. Go ahead.
Well, it's something that you had spoken, this was a different lesson you were teaching, but the fact that this woman went out in public went against Old Testament rules.
Right.
Because you were supposed to separate yourself from people when you were unclean. And for her to risk the death, from what I understand,
yes,
from being exposed to the people, showed her faith, or maybe her desperation. I don't know, but it was her faith in Jesus. Just if she could just touch his robe, I mean, that's quite a leap. How willing are we to step out,
right,
in faith, and guilty as charged of missed opportunities time and time again. But I will say that Tom's book has been, along with your teaching, has been very helpful in just, you know what, let's go for this.
Right.
If you don't see results, then okay, but I'm going to do it again and again and again and again. And so, yes, there's going to be missed opportunities. I've more than once shared. I've blown it and I've missed it. And I felt bad about it, but God was like, you're okay.
Right.
I have plenty of patience and grace
right.
for you. Yeah, and it's a learning thing.
We will figure this out. We'll figure this out together.
And I will say, though, I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. You're fine.
Just going to say, I find ourselves stepping more and more out boldly and just be willing to pray for people, regardless of how they act, or, I mean, not that, what they say, but
right.
the circumstances.
Right.
You just do it. And, so.
Okay.
We got one limit, God, by what we see.
Right. Yeah, we can't let that be a limit.
Go
ahead, Sharon.
I'm just saying.
Yeah, I just been reading gospel and all the sections, for the safeties, and I thought, yes, we equip it and we know the identity of us, and also it's been taught us it doesn't matter what kind of circumstances or what we're thinking, as long as we know that, the ability of God, the healing will work. But what I'm reading, all those verses, and then I know there's one condition the miracle will work is from the receiver side.
Okay.
They have to be willing, at least, for us, for Jesus to pray for them, they have to be asked God to receive the healing, or not denying us to pray for them, to get all the miracle work, because all the verses that, it's all those sick people come to Jesus and
right.
They get healed. So it's like when we approach people, we probably have to let them, Jesus loves you so much. He's willing to heal all the sick that come to him. But the condition is you have to be willing to come to him, to open up.
Yes.
First. Otherwise,
yes.
It won't work. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, like we're faithful. But if one is rejected to receive, then the miracle won't work. They have to at least to be open up. Willing. And then that's how everything works.
Because God honors our free will. He will defend your right to exercise your free will. He's not going to push anything off on you, regardless of how good it might be. Oh wow.
She came to him with full faith, he told her about it. Well, what about whenever he went back to his own hometown and you had a hard time
practicing miracles and healings because they didn't receive because they saw him grow up. Oh, you're just
Right.
this person. You're just this, you know, carpenter stuff. You're just there. They didn't believe that he was.
Yeah, there was limitations.
So he had to leave that place.
Just about the people's non-faith. They limited, he went to, yeah, he used to have perform few miracles because of such little faith.
And he said he could not.
He could not.
Not that he would not. He it said he could not. What do you mean? You were limited.
This is my
When he was dealing with the lunatic son, help my unbelief. Is that what you're talking about?
Strong enough to triumph over an unbeliever, but I mean, I don't know. I think I read something like that.
So when he was here on earth, the human side of him did not perform the miracle because they didn't believe. But as God now back in heaven, that's
But God still won't do it. God still won't just make something happen to somebody.
But doesn't he soften hearts?
Oh yeah, he will play with your heart, but the idea is to get you to accept what he's about to do, or what he wants to do. But you're the deciding factor. Whether this happens to you or not, you make the final decision. Oh no, it's God's. No. It's your choice.
During supplication prayer, like when somebody's in a coma and you're spiritually fighting and praying with the Lord there, then they can't say, yes, I received your. No one did that,
But they can
scary,
hear you.
yeah, that's true. That was a question. I wanted to answer.
Well,
Yeah, go for it.
I'm not trying to. I think there is a little bit of over analysis in some of this because the thing is like I think all of those things are true. Like what you said is true. I do believe that Jesus does have that faith, but I do also believe that it gives us free will because like this is like showing an act of love and demonstration of the power of the kingdom. That's like what I think the purpose is in all of this. But when there's something like a demonic possession, Jesus also a demonstration in that sense. So like if he chooses to demonstrate and God knows that's going to happen, then and somebody who's unbelieving, or somebody who is maybe can't make a free will decision for themselves, and if God has essentially predestined that to occur, he will fulfill it because that's the nature of who God is. So I think it's like maybe yes, it's free will, yes, there's an acceptance of the believer, but God also has the authority and the power if he wanted to heal, because he may have already chosen that situation. I don't know if that makes sense.
You're getting into like predestination and that sort of stuff as well.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying. I'm just saying like he predestined in the sense like, for example, he saw it happen.
Right.
He saw it. God is timeless himself. He can see everything happen. He's seen everything happen that occurred and then what will occur all in the moment, right? That happens. And I think that maybe that's encompassing there. Things not, we should be, when we're praying for somebody, having somebody to be like, receiving free will, yes, but God also has the order.
He has the ability to direct somebody's heart to the point where they have given him enough permission to do something.
The Holy Spirit.
Right.
church like taught election that only people that were saved are the people God chose before time. That erroneously gives me permission to not present the gospel because that person's going to be saved or not saved
regardless.
Yeah,
right.
It doesn't matter what I do.
Right.
But when I heard Robert Morris say that's false, and he explained what hell was, it's like how dare I not present the gospel? And I don't know, I mean, I'm not smart enough to figure that whole concept out, which one is right, which one is wrong. Does God know, but not what we choose because he knows everything and he's outside of time? You know, I that's way above my thinking ability. But I just know that, and I know I'm not responsible for someone's salvation or not, because the stars and the sky and everything declare the works of God and declare who
Right.
he is. So they're in their own responsibility.
Right.
But I'm still responsible.
Right.
Yeah, I mean,
Jesus told them to go to all the world and share the gospel.
Yeah.
It's still, yeah, I hope I'm not trying to debate like about predestination and all that stuff, because I do believe that just like the phenomenon that Jesus was fully God and fully man at the same time blows my mind. How can we, the fact that we, you know, God can see everything in an instant, or has seen everything that has happened or will happen in an instant, but also giving us free will and like also requiring us to walk out in faith, live in his presence and to spread his kingdom on earth, right? Like doing all of that simultaneously, it's mind blowing. Those are some of the mysteries in the mystery of Trinity. All of those things that we just can't quite fathom require us to be obedient.
Yes. And requires to have faith. Requires to just trust. We talked before about I don't have to understand gravity before I know how to work. I don't have to be able to document it or mathematically articulate or any of that stuff, and it'll still work. And, we're into some of those things on this. Let's read one more scripture, which makes this whole thing interesting. This is the one that we said we were going to get to earlier. John 5:2-8. Now in Jerusalem by the sheep gate, there is a pool in the Hebrew that's called Bethesda. It has 5 porticos, and in these a large number of invalids used to lie, people who are blind, lame, and paralyzed, waiting for the movement of the water. For occasionally an angel of the Lord would come down into the pool and stir up the water. The first one into the pool after each such disturbance would be cured of whatever disease he had. A man who had been an invalid for 38 years. When Jesus saw him lying there, he was aware that he had been ill for a long time. He said to him, "Do you want to get well?" It's kind of an odd question. Don't really have time to talk about that today, but it's kind of an interesting question in that environment.
Some people don't want to be well.
Right.
They like the attention to get.
Anyway, that's something else for you to ponder, or we can look up a previous lesson when do you want to get well? Verse 7. The invalid answered him, "Sir, I have no one to put me into the pool when the water stirred up. While I'm still on my way, someone else steps into the pool ahead of me." Jesus said to him, "Rise, take up your mat and walk." Immediately the man was cured. He took up his mat and began to walk. Now it said there were many people in this pool, around this pool, that were in bad spots. Why did Jesus just heal this one? All the previous versions, the people came to Jesus. This one, he went to him. Yes, I know that. Yeah, and I'm not sure how accurate that is, or how much of that is created.
Well,
go ahead.
No, it's all about faith in every one of them. I mean, even the multitude that got healed because they constantly thought they did all this, and they all did because of faith. I mean, that's what I'm thinking. That's what it is.
Or was there just a pinpoint purpose? You see where I'm kind of going with that there?
Right.
I mean, he could have killed all of them.
He could have.
But there's no doubt.
Or could I praying through this morning, and I'm like, okay, or could he have? He can only do what he sees the Father do. He has no ability within himself by his own admission. That's where we started. He can do nothing of himself, but only what he sees the Father do. So in this case, it's not about what I had seen the Father do before, what I had seen the Father do in generic terms. In this case, it's very specific. I have seen the Father, in this case, heal this guy. And my instruction is to go heal this guy. I don't know why everybody else gets skipped. But with that being true, I can do nothing of myself, only what I see the Father do. Could he have healed? the rest of them there that day.
Well, did the others, did they believe in Jesus or did they believe in the power of the pool?
This guy wasn't even really believing in the power of Jesus.
It makes me wonder, kind of taking a bottom line approach for this split second here. Like looking at the situation, I mean, the fact is that all these people are laying out in this pool and trying to receive healing, thinking that this is going to heal their bodies and their invalid or whatever. But if they've been doing that for years and it's like a constant cycle that they expect something to occur to be healed, and it makes me think like maybe in this situation, he's demonstrating like get out of your own head kind of thing.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like, hey, dude, you really are. You're okay. Get out of your own head. Get out of the way of yourself. And I do believe that he still performed a miracle there. But I also think there's a mental thing. Like, if he's been laying the thing for 38 years and expecting something to happen and nothing ever happens, I mean, that's the definition of insanity.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Right? Like doing the same thing twice and expecting a different result. And I think that he's like calling to the heart of him, like the fact of the matter, the guy who wants to be healed, he does. He just doesn't know, he's stuck in his own cycle. So he's like, get up and walk, man.
Right.
Live your life, So I also look at it from that perspective, and I do believe that he's still healing. So I don't know. And to me, I'm wondering if that was also a demonstration to the others who were in the pool area, thinking like, whoa.
Okay.
I just like have my mind blown. And am I really, worried about this? I need to come to Jesus first.
This is the one passage in all this that kind of makes me go, oh, crud, that one doesn't fit. I mean, if I was looking at data science or whatever, I'd say that's an outlier. I'm going to throw that one out. I don't want to think about that one because it messes up all the rest of my stuff. For whatever reason, that one's weird. Chunk it, move on. But we still got to deal with the fact that this one's here, that it's present. So was God capable? Did he desire to heal everybody around that pool that day? Yes. Why did this guy win the lotto? Why did he get special attention and Jesus made a point to go find him and get him out of there? I don't know. I don't have an answer yet.
Well, okay, take Joseph. God took Joseph out of the pit and took him into Egypt, that whole story.
Right.
God did take one,
right,
and then use that one to save the others. So maybe this one guy, when everybody else saw him get healed and there was nothing to do with the pool, maybe there's a Paul Harvey rest of the story here that we just don't have.
That's fine.
And that's entirely possible. I honestly do not know, but I can't do this lesson and exclude this account. My whole point was we can't limit it to, well, I didn't see this specifically. But you also can't say, well, in generic terms, everything is going to happen. So I'm just going to go to the hospital and I'm going to clean out the hospital. That doesn't work well either. And that part of that story falls more under this guideline than the people you just encounter every day. Now, I don't know the answer. I don't know what's going on with it. I'm still praying through this part of it. But I'm certain of this fact. I've got to keep my spiritual mind engaged in this process. Whether I'm told to go do something specifically or something just comes across my path, I've got to be ready in season, out of season for that occurrence. And that does not mean I'm always going to have time and can guarantee that I'm going to have time to stir myself up or to pray or to do whatever to get myself in the right place to do this. I've got to live there. I've got to be directed at all points in time. And if I see something, whether or not I actually see a vision, but I see a need and it's coming my way, okay, take a minute. Spiritual mind, speak. Am I supposed to do something about this? Yes or no? Feel the peace. Feel the release. Am I supposed to do something about that? And then once that is decided, do it or don't do it. But it's not your natural mind making the decision. It's not you trying to factor, well, I didn't hear from God about this. Well, who's to say how God is nudging you? Who's to say how the Spirit is directing you or not directing you in that particular instance? The fact that you saw them with a weird limp, does that mean something? The fact that you noticed something that they needed prayer for, does that say something?
A man and I talking, and the man was limping, and I felt like we were supposed to pray for him. And when we asked, the wife very no, backed us off. And then the man looked at me and asked what I was wanting, and when I said it, he looked at her and went
Okay.
on. And so I'm still left with a feeling like God wanted him to get prayer, but it was refused, and it was not my fault.
And that's totally fine. I'm not fine in the sense of how it worked out, but as far as your accountability or responsible for it, it's fine. You did what you were supposed to do.
About it, or maybe you're so praying that God will figure out a way.
I can figure it out.
I know.
Yeah. Now we're still in touch. Shireen and I have both texted with Ricky and Diana about their situation, and I had more information now. It's been a crazy weekend. We're still in touch with at least one of the families with great.
There's another example of this sort of thing in Scripture. The guy at the gate beautiful in Acts 3. The guy at the gate beautiful that Peter and John spoke to. How long did he sit at that gate? The text indicates that it was a long period of time. He was there day after day after day. Well, Jesus had to, I mean, he's right outside the temple. Jesus had to have passed that guy at least once. He had to have passed him. Why didn't Jesus heal him?
He was saving
it for, and there's some truth to that. There really is. They needed a sign for the early church to confirm that they were dealing with the same power that Jesus operated in. All sorts of things you could say there, but the fact is, Jesus didn't heal him, and he probably had an opportunity to do so. So the two ditches here. God, you have to speak to me about every situation in particular, or you never have to speak to me, and I'm just going to assume that it's always applicable. Where's the truth? Somewhere between the two. And really the only common denominator is I've got to keep my spiritual mind attuned to know what is going on, to get information to direct my natural mind into what I do, where I walk, who I speak to. And then once I make the decision to do that, get back over into my spiritual mind. And okay, I have the authority to do this. I have the grace to do this. I have the calling to do this right now. I'm going to believe and we're going to receive. Did any of this help as far as understanding or thinking through what it means? Jesus did nothing unless he saw the Father do it.
And I feel like this whole discussion really makes me understand far more of the humanity side of Jesus. From the fact that God, but you know, he is fully God and fully man. Like he really did experience everything that a human would experience here, but with the authority of God. And then walking and being like, I do like, you know, the fact that we're calling out like situations where he didn't realize that people were coming to him.
Right.
He knew they would, but he didn't know exactly when that was going to occur. He didn't expect to be in a situation to demonstrate his power with the wineskins and all of that stuff, right? I mean, it was before time. So like he's like recognizing, he knows all this stuff. It's like a pre-boot, you know, like a operating system software. You know, you have a pre-built image, right? Like of the system that is always there. Like he knew something was already there. You have the basic foundations of which to operate. But then when you go and do the additional things on top of that, he's like, I already know all of this. Like, I know and expect that this will work because that's how
right.
it is. But I have to still be human.
Last week we started. Go ahead. Last week we started talking about the lowering the paralytic on the bed in front of Jesus, and Jesus saying to the guy, your sins be forgiven. And then nothing really changed. They got mad at him for saying, you don't have the authority to forgive sins. And then he said, rise, take up your bed and walk. And then he says, which is easier? Which is easier to say, your sins be forgiven, or rise, take up your bed and walk? And we talked about 100 people come forward to give their life to Jesus. We don't have any doubt that all 100 of them are going to walk away born again. Same 100 people come forward to be healed. Most of us don't believe that all 100 of them are going to walk away healed. And the question is, why not? It was purchased at the same time. It's still God's heart. It's part of the same salvation package. So why would we be certain about one part of it and not certain about the other part of it? We've got some bad junky training and teaching. And
well, one spiritual, that your spirit's renewed and born again, the other's physical.
Okay.
And I think that's one of the big reasons.
The spiritual component of that is much more involved than the physical component of that. But we have more faith because we've heard it over and over again. We're more developed in that truth of it. So the question then becomes, I see a person that has a physical need. Am I going to evaluate that on behalf of the physical need, or am I going to evaluate that on behalf of the person needing Jesus? Person comes up to me and says, I want to give my life to Jesus. Can you help me? Of course, I'll help you. Here, let's pray the prayer. Without hesitation, without thinking, well, is this God's will? Am I supposed to do this? You wouldn't even have that discussion. You would just pray with them, regardless of what you're doing, and it'd be done. The person comes up to you and says, I need healing. Why do we do different mental gymnastics with that question as opposed to, I want to get born again? Why is the discussion, why is the dialogue different in our heads? One shouldn't be any easier than the other. One shouldn't be any more complicated than the other. One shouldn't be any more difficult than the other. Are we as willing to pray the healing side of that prayer as we are willing to get them born again? Should be. And most of us are not.
Do we have faith to believe that if we pray for their healing?
And that's really where the question is. And if not, why don't we?
I don't know, but we have faith that if they receive Christ, they're going to be born again. I don't know why.
But Jesus said the two are equal.
I know.
One is not harder than the other. For some reason, they are to us. And they shouldn't be.
What our perception of healing is.
There you go.
There are all kinds of junk in our filter. But all I'm saying is our filters have got to be cleaned out. We've got to replace that filter with a new filter that doesn't have all that junk inside it. I was going to show a video, but I'm not going to worry about it today. We're already too late. I'm sorry for keeping you longer than I wished. Right now, I'm still planning on being there at 3:30 today. I'll let everybody know on the app, the Church Center app, if that differs, if that changes or whatever. I've enjoyed this. Do send me an email at that email address with your thoughts, or, hey, I didn't like the way you did this, or any feedback from me, feedback about the class. Anything would be helpful. My intention is to not only improve my next thing, whatever that is, but to also make this or something like it a regular ongoing thing here, just simply because people need this particular thing. They need this discussion to know who they are and what's available to them. It's the only way we're going to change. It's the only way that we're going to impact the area around us to the extent that we need to do so.